Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick. I'll be your host. So we've got two ship's hulls in front of us, despite I'm sure what you read on the video title here either being USS Missouri or USS Lexington. The fact of the matter is both of them need their boot top, and what better time after they've both gotten their hull red to get a boot top. So I went ahead and marked off using my handy dandy homemade waterline marker. And I got the bottom of the boot top marked off, so we're going to get some flat black because both of the regular hull colors above the waterline are fairly dark. So we need the flat black for the contrast. So I'm going to get the flat black and spray that down, and then we'll go ahead and mark the waterline on both and get that masked off, and that's where the two builds will start to diverge onto their own videos. Okay, so sit right back here. We'll have a look at it after the flat black goes down. Well, the boot top is painted on both USS Missouri and USS Lexington. Now, you'll notice because this is not straight up and down hull right here, the boot top's going to be a little bit wider right here than it would be right there. And that's perfectly normal and perfectly natural. I'll show you the Lexington. This one doesn't have a aft end quite like Missouri, so the boot top there will be just about the exact same width for most of the ship. I mean, close to it, and won't be exact, but it will definitely be close. But as you can see, the black, the XF1 flat black is on there. And at this point, I just need to mask up, and I think I'm going to make the boot strap. The Google AI Gemini recommended 5mm because during wartime boot tops were about 6 feet high. And so they scaled that down in to 1/350th to about 5mm. I'm going to go with 4mm though, just a little bit thinner, looks a little bit more right to my eyes. So I don't always have to go exactly with the 100% accuracy or calculations or anything, what everyone else has done or what everyone else thinks. Usually I just like to kind of go with what I think looks right, and that's what I'm going to do in this case. So about a 4mm boot top line for boot top width for the boot top on both ships. So I'm going to go ahead, and at this point the USS Missouri and Lexington are going to diverge into their separate videos because I'm going to be masking and putting down their own specific color mixes. Alright, the boot top is masked off, again just using my handy dandy waterline marker, and I got that all masked off. See back here, used a circle cutter here to get that back end so it looks smooth. And all in all, pretty happy with the masking job. So my next step here is, because we've got black up here, I'm going to be taking some white paint to kind of help neutralize this a little bit. If I put down this dark blue, navy blue color that I mixed, then it's going to be really dark here and lighter up here. I'd like to kind of neutralize it and give it a little bit of a lighter shade to begin with, because I mean it's pretty dark. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do, is get some gray modeled onto, or some white modeled onto there a little bit, and hopefully we get a little bit of a kind of a pre-weathering, pre-distressed paint effect, in addition to, again, kind of helping neutralize this black. So be right back here, show you what I've done once I've done it. Alright, no, this is not some weird alternative paint scheme from World of Warships or whatever games are out there. This is, again, just me neutralizing that black that was the overspray from the boot top. So at this point now I'm going to really thin down this mix here of my 5N navy blue. And the mix came off of Google's Gemini. And give me just a moment, I'll tell you exactly what that was, but there's about the color right there. And I'm going to go on really super thin coats because I don't really want it to be 100% that dark all over the place. And Here we go with the mix of the 5N navy blue that I came up with off of, well, that Google's Gemini came up with. That was 5 parts of XF17 sea blue, which is so dark it's almost black. 1 part of XF1 flat black, and 1 part XF8, which is flat blue. And Gemini claims that it captures the deep, slightly grayish dark blue tone without looking completely black. And this was for a Measure 22 paint scheme that Missouri had in 1945 after the Japanese surrender on the deck of the Missouri. I did put some white into it. I put some XF2 white into it just to kind of tone it down a little bit. At 1/350th scale, if it was that dark, it might not look fantastic. So we can always darken it back up with washes and tone, oil filters, stuff like that. But I wanted to start off with a fairly light color at first. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and get this navy blue on there, and we'll have a look afterwards. Okay, the 5N navy blue has been sprayed. We can go ahead and put that in front of us. And before anyone says it, I am completely aware that I still need to draw another line here and put on a haze gray, but I'm going to go ahead and take this off anyway so I can make sure I don't have any mess ups or oopses or leaks. And besides, when we mask up here, it is just going to be from this main deck height forward, and that's going to be perfectly parallel with the boot top. So we'll still be masking off everything else beneath it. So I really just am very curious about what we ended up with here. And I guess I'm going to have to go down here and just, yeah. Everyone always makes a big deal out of unmasking, and I think we all know why. You get to see where all that time of masking went. Now, I'm going to have to get something sticky. I've got some glue residue here from this wider kabuki tape, so that is going to have to come off. I'm not real keen on the fact that it was there at all, that residue, but and that pulled off one of my rudders, so that's fantastic. Wonderful. So it looks like I've got a little bit of a repair to do. And that's okay. Sometimes that tape can just stick a little too well, and usually try to de-tack a little bit. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. For whatever reason, sometimes it's just that really wide yellow tape like this has a mind of its own. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull this up. I'm really curious how this back end came out. Go. So far I'm really liking the boot top. And the color looks pretty much in line, except for it's a little light down here. When it comes time to do some weathering though, that should be entirely correctable. So what we've got to remember is this is returning to America, at least in the timeline that I'm presenting it, it's returning to America shortly after the Japanese signed a declaration of peace on the decks of this very ship. So we got to consider that Missouri's been at war for a little bit and has definitely seen by this time some use and abuse. So some oil filters, a little bit of algae, a little bit of salt streaking, the fading and everything like that is going to be just fine. I'm not seeing any leaks or anything like that. I'm not seeing any bleed. So I think our biggest problems here are, one, putting the rudder back on. When it's time to apply some color filters, darkening this back up. And getting rid of some of the sticky tape residue that we're bound to see here and there. You kind of might be able to make it out right there. Yep. This looks like slight little blotches. It's not paint lift, it is definitely kind of here where my glove is sticking to that. That is definitely tape residue. So I got a nice little line of it right there. Alright, but other than that, I'm pretty pleased with how everything turned out. You kind of see a little bit of color modulation here. I put down some darker blotches over those little rivet plates. And again, I'm going to use the waterline marker, and we go from right about here. Use right about here where the deck starts to cant upwards, and we're going to draw a line that's perfectly parallel with the boot top. And below that is this beautiful 5N navy blue, and above that is going to be a haze gray. So I'm going to put this aside to dry though before I put any tape on there, and we'll look at something else in the meantime. Well, went ahead and got the this front wedge shape, as I've heard this referred to oftentimes in online research. Got that masked off and painted. It's in haze gray, which is a mix of, to me, acrylic paints here, consisting of 2 parts of XF25, which is a light sea gray, and 2 parts of XF2, which is a flat white, and 1 part of XF18, which is a medium blue. That gives us the haze gray. This was probably my most unfun masking job, and the reason being is right up there. And as we can see right there, there's all kinds of complex curves and curvature in that surface, so trying to get that to be a perfectly horizontal or parallel to the boot top line was really, really difficult. And what I finally did was took some tape and put it over there, and then used my waterline marker just to mask where that was, and then pulled the waterline marker back and cut the tape out there, and that's what allowed me to achieve that. So at this point I've gotten the touch-ups done, and it is, I would classify it as the world's most delicate paint job right now, so I need to clear coat it. I'm going to put some gloss down so that we can give it some washes and some oil filters and things like that, make it look used and like it's been in salt water and stuff like that. So while I do that though, I'm going to start work on our main battery. And the main battery is the next step in our instructions on page 5. So we're going to start with this right here and get all the pieces assembled, and we'll kind of get some of this stuff on. Now notice a lot of this though is not going to go according to the instructions on page 5 because we have got a ton of photo etch to add to it as well. So let me get things assembled here. We'll probably just conquer some of the plastic today and the photo etch on another day after I've already had a chance to kind of tackle it on my own and get through all the cursing, cussing, swearing, all that is going to be involved with that initial attempt. The way Verifier have laid out some of their parts I really appreciate, and it's something you don't always see in a lot of other kits there. All of the parts right here and these parts here, they don't even mention which one that is, but it's pretty self-explanatory if you look at the sprues. All of the parts up to this right here are all on the same sprue, and that even includes this shell right here that you have to drill. They do finally mention the part 4 down here, but they're all on the I sprue, and you get 3 of them. They're identical, so it makes it really nice and easy just to be able to have one sprue in front of you and cut out the parts you need without having to rummage through the box looking for different sprues and different parts and what have you. So go ahead and start getting some of these cut out and cleaned up. Alrighty, all those parts that we separated from the sprues are all cleaned up, sanded, ready to go. So go ahead and start getting them assembled. I'd like to call attention to some of the parts have ejector pin marks, but they are double-sided, so you can have them one way or the other. Didn't really matter unless you are planning on pulling the turrets out and showing people all this detailed inside and anything like that. Then all of this is pretty much largely irrelevant. But I did sand off the ejector pin marks on this plate since there's only one way up, and they were fairly close to this right here. So it looks like this right here is where these 2 parts, once they're together, seat on there. So I did not want the ejector pin marks to interfere with that at all. But I'll go ahead and start speeding things up and get things together. Alright, that sped up a little bit, and you can see I kind of left a little personal mark on there. Just a little bit of that extra thin quick setting managed to seep out. I thought I was in a safe place, but I was not. At any rate, that is that portion of one of the turrets so far. So next up here is, besides securing this with a little bit more better gluing job, I'm going to move on to turret base. It looks like these are the breeches for the guns, and more parts having to do with the 16-inch guns here. As you can see, the breeches are made up of 4 independent pieces. So we got 12 pieces there, 15, 18, 19, in addition to this. So complex little assemblies. Besides the breeches though, you're not really going to see any of this unless you cut away the turret, and if you wanted to do that, then you'd probably need to super detail it up a little bit. Not really going to see, again, this either unless you're super detailing this and you're going to make, keep it removable so you can take it out and show it to people. But it is nice in that this will give us something to put into a vise while we attach all the photo etch on top of the turret. So go ahead and get these pieces out here. Be right back. Now that they're all cleaned up, go ahead and start getting them together. One thing I did find interesting here is, again, doubtful I would ever think about actually cutting away one of the turrets, but there is actually detail on these gun breeches, which I find fairly fascinating. I mean, it is absolutely minute detail. You can possibly barely make out some of the rivets right there. So, interesting. But for the most part, these all just kind of, well, looks like I did miss a little bit of cleanup here on some of these. Ejector pin marks, and it is pretty much loaded with them. Wow. For something as well detailed and thought out as this has been so far, I'm just surprised to see so many ejector pin marks. But, I'll go ahead, and I'm not particularly worried about an absolutely error-free or clean join here. Mainly I just need these to go together so they will hold the other parts of the gun together so we can put the blast bags and the metal barrels on there. I'll show you what all those parts look like here as we get to them. But I figured it was time to move on to something a little bit more interesting than just the hull. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and speed things up and get the rest of these together. Alrighty, again, just calling out attention. They do show this part, but they don't actually show the part number. So for those of you who are interested, that part number is I-11. That'd probably look like, if you go on by the rest of this manual, I or 111, but it is I-11. Go ahead and start getting parts cut out again. I or 111 is I-11. Go ahead and start getting parts cut again. Alright, everything's been cleaned up here. So I'd like to call attention on this one that it does have an underside. And that matters in the detail up kit. One of the turrets, maybe it's two of the turrets, there's actually photo etch parts that go in there. So, and have a look at these parts here that go toward the back right here. Bad sink marks, and it's just because it's a really thick hunk of plastic for a small part. These are actually fairly kind of detailed here. They look to be like the loaders. Those loaders go right there like that. So I'll go ahead and start getting stuff put into place. Alright, not that any of this really matters, because again I'm not going to cut away the turret, and these breeches don't really matter that much in my opinion, because again I'm not cutting away the turret, but there is absolutely no connectivity between these breeches and where this outer hull, the armor plating around the turret, is going to go. The blast bags are what hold the barrels in a static position. So there is absolutely no real adjustment, despite the fact that it's got these handy dandy little pins which would allow you to swivel these. So for the most part, I'll just put this down here, pop these in, and it is interesting. If you wanted to do something like with this, you could do something like that, and you do have the option, but it's not going to matter a lot unless you're going to open the turret up. And then the question is, are you going to do it on all three or just the one? Because to my knowledge they all had a semi-unique configuration depending on their placement in the ship and where the powder and the powder rooms and the magazines were in relation to the turrets and the barbettes. But that is where we're up to right now with step 3. I'm going to do the other 2 off camera, and I think I'm going to do a quick review of what we got here and call it a day for this video. Alright, liar liar, pants on fire. One thing I wanted to do, and I'm going to do before this is closed out here as well, is you go to a lot of trouble putting detail and stuff on here, all this good stuff, and drill out the shell. And all of this is a ton of photo etch, and there's some 3D printed parts come with the detail upset. And that might make this a little bit delicate with the photo etch ladders and all that, and the railings, to then try to attach it all to that right there. So what I would like to do, and what I'm proposing that I'm going to do, is I'm going to go ahead and attach this now. So I get that attached now, and then after I get done sanding everything off of this, I'm going to attach that onto there, so then I can put this in this lovely little orbital vise, and I can adjust it as I need in order to put all that photo etch detail and all that fun stuff on there. So I'm going to go ahead and have a look. There are little tongues right there that fit into little grooves. And these right here, I think these are chutes for powder. Those go toward the back. Now, go ahead. There we go. And a little bit of extra thin quick setting just to lock it into place. Not, again, overly concerned with any of this interior detail and whether or not cement hits it or anything's obscured, or some of the ejector pin marks which the insides of these semicircular pieces are riddled with. All I'm concerned with is getting this in place and making sure that it's square, because at the end of the day, this right here has to fit down into there. And then we can sit there and play with it and turn it like we're going to be pew-pew-pewing at Japanese battleships. All right. There we go. So that is all the construction I'm going to be doing in this. What do we have to look forward to on our next video? We touch and base on some of the preparations for these turret shells and some of the photo etch that's going into these. Additionally, we've got these Carly floats, which there are a bunch of that go on there. These are all 3D printed parts. I think these are 3D printed parts, so nothing big there. Luckily, we don't have to make 20 or 23 because I think they're all in one piece already. And we get the main armament done, and then we move into 5-inch guns. And concurrently, we'll be working on getting the hull weathered up and making that look a little bit better than just the toyish basic colors on it. Because we're going to want to put a little bit of algae, a little bit of salt staining, and some wear on there just to make it look like it has served its time in World War II. But until that time comes, stay safe and happy modeling.